And hopefully, the work that you're doing and that other people are doing will foster this climate for having a conversation that doesn't involve punishment of those and societal sanctions of those who are trying to ask these very important questions.
I couldn't agree more, and I'm so grateful. And I just want to highlight and emphasize that incredible point that you made, and to give people hope that we absolutely are making a difference. This is huge. This is absolutely huge. In many communities, more than 50% of the people are choosing not to take this vaccine. So, it's passing this information along to your friends and family, lovingly sharing with them. Not being hypercritical if they choose to take the other position. And if you want to generate more healthy skepticism, I'm hoping to have some PDFs and hopefully be on this page that you can actually print on your printer and post in public places around your neighborhood and community, local community, to generate more healthy skepticism and bring questions, people questioning the safety issue on this.
Well, I think you're right.
And let me just comment on one thing too before you comment back on this. But there, one of the in this, one of the things I appreciate about the 60-minute segment is that the interviewer questioned the Surgeon General or the Assistant Surgeon General repeatedly about vaccine safety, repeatedly, and the response was that, and this is what the traditional response is, very consistent, is that this is made the same way that flu vaccine is. Okay, that's what they're trying to, the logic they're using to convince us that this is safe. But at the same time, they're saying that the H1N1 is completely different and we have to be alarmed and concerned. So how can we have it both ways? It just doesn't make sense. It's a completely irrational argument.
Well, I think so. And, I was thinking as you were talking that, if we were sitting here today where you had a virus that was like Ebola, that was killing efficiently, that was causing mayhem among the population, we would be having a very different conversation. And I think that as we look at all of this, we have to acknowledge that in certain circumstances, were there to be a virulent virus that was efficiently killing, a vaccine may well be something that we would want to consider. But when we're looking at a situation where you have a mild viral infection that does not kill efficiently, that is not causing tremendous mortality in the population, the response by government to be in the middle of a public health emergency that was declared in April and renewed again in July, and this continuing drumbeat for saying everyone's got to get vaccinated, it causes so many questions in the minds of the people, and it should. It's not balanced, it has no perspective, and as I said, people who have never asked questions before about vaccination are now looking at this and saying, what's wrong with this picture? And they're right to do that. We have got to bring the public health infrastructure has grown extremely powerful, and there's a Department of Homeland Security that has been created that is working closely with Department of Health and Human Services. And we do not want a militarization of the civilian public health infrastructure in this country, where we're in a situation where we have government officials telling people to get vaccinated, mandating in the future people get vaccinated, and anybody who doesn't comply with that is somehow, sanctioned, is isolated or quarantined against their will. These responses must be calibrated and must be balanced, or the people are going to, frankly, they're going to reject a lot of public health initiatives because they don't trust them.
Yeah, and the reason they would implement this type of severe, harsh measure is this concept of herd immunity. Now, last week I actually interviewed Dr. Larry Pilevsky, but that interview is going to be posted later than this one, and I discussed it with him very thoroughly. But this is the supposition, the premise, the people that health officials and the experts are using to implement these suggestions, and that's what the public is believing, so much so that they think people who are choosing not to vaccinate are morally, reprehensibly more irresponsible, because they're exposing others to this infection by not vaccinating. So I'm wondering if you could comment on that, because it is really a central component of their argument of implementing this whole process.
Well, I've been very concerned in the last 5 years that there has been this move to demonize and really harass and kind of marginalize and persecute people who ask questions about vaccine safety and who are advocating informed consent. That is the ability of citizens to have full information about the risks and complications of the diseases, infectious diseases, risks and complications of vaccines, and be able to make an informed, voluntary decision about which risk they're going to take. The concept of herd immunity, as you probably know, goes back to when disease becomes endemic in a population, there's a barrier to transmission as people get antibodies and are protected from future infection. That certainly is true with, for example, chickenpox. When we didn't have a vaccine, most children were getting chickenpox. 99.99% of them were having no complications. There were about 100 deaths in this country from chickenpox every year prior to 1995 when that chickenpox vaccine was introduced. 50 in children, 50 in adults. That's not to minimize those deaths. A death is a death. Every death is important. But the truth is that for most children, it was a mild disease. And the way it worked was then as you got older and you came in contact with children who were infected with chickenpox, you were asymptomatically boosted and your immunity was extended. We now have taken chickenpox out of the childhood population with the mass use of this vaccine, and we're seeing a resurgence of shingles. We're seeing an epidemic of shingles in older children and adults, which is, how is it being addressed? It's being addressed with the shingles vaccine. The same manufacturer that manufactures the sole producer of chickenpox vaccine is the sole producer of shingles vaccine. So when you start to use a vaccine on a mass basis, you change the epidemiology of disease. In this case, you drive it into the younger groups, into the infants, or into the older groups, both ends of the spectrum, where you can have more complications. So you totally change the way the population experiences the disease. But again, when you have the infection and have antibodies, it gives you a qualitatively superior immunity that is longer lasting than vaccination. And this is something that is not discussed. We need to have truthful, honest, open, public discussions about the way our society is going to go forward in the 21st century in terms of achieving health and maintaining health. And the assumption that more vaccines are going to equal better long-term health for our population is an assumption that has not been buttressed by scientific studies. We don't have the science to say unequivocally that is true. Therefore, in fact, we have evidence saying just the opposite may be true. We need to find out, and we can only do that by having this open public discussion and not marginalizing people who are trying to have it. It is up to the federal health authorities, the people in charge of the mass vaccination system, to do this science and support this science and to answer these outstanding questions about our health and not assume safety. So, I only see this discussion becoming, more public as people are resisting the attempts by those in charge to not have the debate. And I welcome this opportunity, Joe, to talk about this because I don't get the opportunity in mainstream media to really talk about this.